Hey everyone, welcome to the 396th episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And we have so much to talk about this week, mostly Matter related. There's a big Matter event, so we're going to talk about who's adding Matter, what we know about Matter. This is mostly about releases, so you'll get lots of updates on your favorite devices. So stay tuned for that. We're also going to be hearing about a new Amazon device, a Amazon privacy lawsuit that you may want to track. Arlo has a new device. Actually, they have two new devices. We also have some upsetting news about Levels Lock, upsetting news about a lighting startup, and Kevin has reviewed the Google Nest Wi-Fi Pro, so we're going to hear what he thinks about that. We're also going to hear from our sponsor, ARM, as well as our guest this week. And all of my lovely chip heads out there will be excited to hear from Avnet's Peggy Carriers, who's going to be talking about the chip shortage and how that's affecting designs of hardware. So all of this and more awaits you. But first, a message from another one of our sponsors. This week's sponsor is Silicon Labs. Silicon Labs is a leader in secure, intelligent wireless technology for a more connected world. Their integrated hardware and software platform, intuitive development tools, and robust support make them an ideal long-term partner in building advanced industrial, commercial, home, and life applications. Silicon Labs makes it easy for developers to solve complex wireless challenges throughout the product lifecycle and get to market quickly with innovative solutions that transform industries, grow economies, and improve lives. Learn more at scilabs.com. Alrighty. First up, you're getting this podcast probably a little late if you are one of our diehard fans, whom we adore, by the way, love y'all, who download it right away. You're getting it late because we held off on publishing because right now, like literally right now, if you're doing this on Thursday morning, there is an event happening in Amsterdam, and I'm not there because
that we are not at.
But no. That showcases all of Matter. You can learn more about it in the newsletter that's coming out on Thursday. But some of the news that we're going to be hearing is all about who's supporting Matter and how. And this is the question we've been asking for the last month when we got Matter.10 and no devices. So like right now, I have SmartThings running in my house. It's running Matter. It's still broken, by the way. But we're going to work on that when they come back from Amsterdam.
But that's okay. To me, this is, yes, last week or 2 weeks ago when the official Matter spec was released, or whenever it was last month. That was big because that meant that it's official, everything's locked down for version 1.0, and all the device makers have been prepping for that. So that was good. But this is where we start actually hearing about true plans, products, and so on to kick Matter off, basically.
A bunch of companies are making announcements. Some that aren't making that we've asked about. So Google isn't. SmartThings already did their big announcement, and Amazon is doing an announcement. So their big news related to Matter rollout is Eero devices and Echoes are going to get Matter support starting in December, but it's going to be Matter over Wi-Fi. And this is relevant. Remember, Matter is an application layer protocol, so that means up at the software level. And it will run over Wi-Fi for big data type things, and also over a network called Thread for kind of smaller battery-powered devices. So Amazon isn't rolling out Matter support over Thread just yet. That's going to happen next year. And the reason why it's doing that is because when I talked to Chris DeCenzo over at Amazon, he was like, look, this is the version 1.0 of Matter. We want to test this on devices so our consumers have a good experience. And right now, the version of Thread that we've actually talked about on the show fairly recently, it's 1.3. I think it's 1.3.0. That just came out. So they're trying to add support for that, and they want to see how that's going to work in the real world before they roll it out to have over 100 million devices that they're going to end up rolling this out to. So, it's staged. So the focus is going to be on Wi-Fi, and the initial focus is only going to be on switches, plugs, and bulbs. Matter supports a lot more than that, but again, this is an effort to test on a large volume of devices to make sure things are working before they roll it out to things like sensors and thermostats and TVs and blinds and what all else there is. So that's kind of the Amazon deal. They also said that they are going to have a similar deal as Google does with SmartThings. They obviously didn't say it like that, but basically, if you add a device to your Amazon Echo, it will be added to your SmartThings. So you can use SmartThings and Amazon as a controller. Vice versa will also happen. If you add stuff to SmartThings, you can add it to Amazon.
So 2 things here. First, I can't say I'm surprised, and I'm actually glad they're just not like flipping a giant master Matter switch and dealing with all kinds of devices across, as you said, 100 million of them out there in the wild. It makes sense to start with the switches, plugs, bulbs, simpler devices, so to speak. So I actually give them credit. Some people may be disappointed, and I understand that, but they're right. I mean, this is a 1.0 release, and when you are supporting that many devices, you want to be very careful, right? The second thing is, so Amazon is saying add devices in our app, they show up in SmartThings. Same with Google. I got to believe that if I had Amazon devices, they'd show up in Google and vice versa as well.
So here's something interesting about the multi-admin feature.
This is the controller thing, isn't it?
This is where I'm disappointed. I know it's Matter.10, but like
same already.
If you're a developer, you really can't afford to ignore. And I should also say that Amazon is also for developers saying things like, hey, it's Madam A Connect Kit. That's their hardware and software to bring your device really easily to make it work with Madam A. So with the Madam A Connect Kit, SDK is going to also work with Matter. So you can download that. As long as you have a Matter certification and you download that, it will work together. But if you still want your stuff to work as seamlessly with Madam A and get that works with Madam A badge, you're going to have to still develop for Madam A. And the same thing for Google. So like my hope was Matter would just like, you wouldn't have quite so many badges, right? But there's still going to be badges. There's still going to be programs you have to run through, hoops you have to run through as a developer.
That's it. I'm done with Matter.
And that's fair. It's a significant issue because one of the promises of Matter was that developers would have it easy and consumers. Well, I think in the near term, consumers will have it easier. So the other thing to know about this is Amazon says they're rolling this out to over 30 devices. There's like 17 Echo devices. There's, I guess that would make it 13 Eero devices. But a notable exception on that list is Ring. There is no support announced yet for Ring devices. And this sort of makes sense. Ring is, cameras are not supported, video doorbells are not supported, but there are security sensors that hopefully one day will get support. But those are probably the Thread-related support, and that's maybe why we're not seeing them. Anyhow, so that's the Amazon news and rollout plan for Matter. So you should see that in December on your smart plugs and outlets and bulbs first. Next up, Nanoleaf, my expensive lighting stuff that's really art, but they also make light bulbs.
They are nice. I mean, they're expensive, but they are nice.
So they are announcing 4 new Matter-compatible smart bulbs and light strips in their Essentials, which is kind of their plainer, low-cost line.
Well, yeah, more traditional shapes and things like regular bulb shapes and such.
Are they regular bulb? Their older Essentials bulbs were they hexagonal?
Hexagonal?
Hexagonal? Yeah, like there were more than 6 sides, so.
Dodecahedron?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, yes. So I'm not sure what they actually look like. I don't have an image yet.
Yeah, so these are in their Essentials line, which typically normally shaped, and they support A19, GU10, BR30, and they also have a light strip. All of these have RGBW support, so you have 16 million colors, reds, greens, blues, whites. The color temperature ranges are 2700 to 6500, so you can tune that white, which is nice. And of course, they can dynamically change with the Nanoleaf app and, the scenes in that app. So Yeah, so more Matter support here, which is nice. And I know that, don't they have some of their existing products will support Matter as well?
So they have products that are Matter ready. And as we've said, Matter ready means that it's got the thread radios, it's got the memory to do the upgrade, but they are not talking about when they plan to upgrade the existing devices. So it's going to be new Matter devices first. They're going to launch some other stuff actually at CES too, but we don't have any word on your existing Nanoleaf stuff and when that will get an update to Matter. So that's kind of a bummer.
You won't see these new essential smart bulbs and light strips until probably CES at the earliest, because they will be available early 2023, and the prices will range from $19.99 to $99.99. I'm presuming the $99.99 is the light strip, but that's just a guess.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Eve Energy, Eve Door, and Window, and Eve Motion are going to get optional over-the-air Matter updates on December 12th. This is great for you because I know you have some of these. Yes, Eve Energy, I think.
I have 2 out of those 3 products. Right. Yes, I have the Eve Door and Window, and I have the Eve Motion.
Now, it is important to know, if you do this update on December 12th, you will not be able to undo it and go back. This goes for almost all of the Matter stuff. The firmware updates are going to be they're big. This is not a small update that can be rolled back. So I want y'all to be aware of that. We'll make Kevin do it first.
I think I will do it, A, because it's my job, but B, because I currently use these Eve products and a Thread network today through HomeKit. And eventually they will work outside of HomeKit because Eve will have an Android app in the first quarter of 2023. So, I mean, this is a company that I think benefits tremendously from Matter and Thread in general, because now instead of being HomeKit only, which they've been since the dawn of time, they can expand to new customers.
Yes. And the rest of Eve's 14 Thread-enabled devices will receive free Matter firmware updates throughout next year. And then you're going to be able to buy Matter certified Eve products in the first quarter of next year. So, yay, Eve. Next up, Brilliant.
Ooh, hadn't talked about them in ages.
You know, we had the CEO a while back on the podcast, and he talked about Matter back then. But Brilliant makes a smart home controller that integrates into your light switch. And it is a light switch with a screen, and it's fancy.
It's almost like the screen of an iPod Touch in the place of your light switch.
Yeah. So they have joined the Connectivity Standards Alliance, woo, which means they get access to Matter, and they are going to bring Matter support to its lineup of devices starting next year. And basically it's like, hey, we believe in Matter, which makes sense because they integrate with everything, and this should help them. So, yay.
Yeah, everybody's jumping on the 2023 bandwagon here.
Well, that's right around the corner, y'all.
I know. Just we've been waiting so long.
All right, Schneider Electric news?
Folks that have the Wiser Gateway and Wiser Smart Plug from Schneider Electric are apparently among the first to achieve Matter certification. Everybody who's getting Matter certified now is among the first, but that's okay. So yeah, this is their first 2 products. I presume they will bring more. In fact, they will. They're going to bring a wide range of home energy management products. Smart plugs, switches, sockets will be added to the list of Matter certified products. I don't know when, probably 2023.
And it's worth noting that Matter doesn't actually incorporate any energy management data as part of its standard. So that's kind of a bummer, but
that's okay because, they're open to expanding.
Yes.
People like Schneider Electric will be like, hey, we can build off your spec and include this. And then anybody who has home energy management devices, I should say, can, glom onto that spec and support it and push it through. So
that's the big Matter updates that we have for y'all currently. I also checked in with SmartThings just to see if they've seen anything with Matter. And basically they said, hey, a lot of people are really interested and updating their stuff, but it's still early days. We haven't seen any big issues or anything yet. So
right. And we checked with Google as well to see if they're participating in the launch today, the Matter virtual event or event, I should say. And they have people on site to help out, answer questions, but they have nothing to announce.
Yeah. The list of people who had nothing to announce ahead of time was long. So I really recommend checking us out on our newsletter because we'll have all the actual stuff that happened. because, again, we record this on Wednesday. So, okay, let's move on to news that is not related to Matter. We've got a sneaky device thing from Dave Zatz, who is your neighbor. No, not your neighbor. Used to be your neighbor?
Nah, we still meet up every once in a while. He's down in the Washington, D.C. area, so about 2 hours away.
He has discovered a Ring car alarm. Now, Amazon did say that they were going to launch a Ring car alarm, and he somehow acquired an image of what that device is going to be.
And a video. And aside from that, we have no other details. We don't know pricing or availability. We just know that it's gone through the FCC filing process and there's a Bluetooth certification already. It does have LTE inside it, and Dave says he expects the Ring Protect Go LTE plan, possibly through AT&T in the US, because that is mentioned in the paperwork, AT&T. So basically, this is just a little attachment you put in your car. You can put on the windshield or the dashboard, and it's got front and back cameras. So it's a car dash cam. You would, based on the video that he showed, which has the setup process and how to use, you would basically tell Madam A to start recording when you wanted to record something, which is interesting. But at all times, it can be set up for an alarm system. And then if it's in range of your home wireless network, it'll just use Wi-Fi to let you know somebody's messing with your car. If it's not in range, it would then send that information over LTE. You can also remotely look through either camera from the Ring app, presumably. There's a privacy shutter on the the interior facing camera. So that's, I think, a good thing. And I noticed in the video that you can tell the camera who is a familiar face. So people who are in your family or drivers. So that way when the camera sees them walk up to the car, apparently it can unlock it. And I don't know how that works, but we'll see what happens there. And then if it's somebody else walking up to your car that it doesn't recognize, it can say, hey, I don't know this person, so I'm going to let you know that they're by your car.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, this feels like a lot, but I see why. I mean, I'm like, I'm worried that if someone saw a dashboard cam, they'd just break into my car to steal the dashboard cam. But
but at least you'd know who they are.
I would see their balaclava covered face and be like, oh, there's that person who stole my dashboard cam. Great.
All right. Maybe there's GPS positioning in there with that LTE radio. I don't know.
Maybe. Okay. So Amazon is in court. They are in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Washington. And basically, they're in court because a bunch of people said, you know what? Amazon is listening to us and saving these permanent recordings of our voices without our knowledge or consent. And the judge apparently said, you know what? This is legit enough that I'm going to allow this to go forward. So this is an interesting lawsuit simply because voice-activated speakers that are accidentally activated and save recordings are ubiquitous in our homes and society. So if this passes, this probably would just change the consent around it. We've already seen the companies involved, making these things, change consent around this and really try to be very, you have to now opt into somebody reviewing your recordings. You have the ability to delete them right away and delete them on a 6-month or an annual or whatever basis. So some of these concerns are less relevant, but I do think it's important to hold these companies accountable. And so I'm okay with this.
It's still to the point where, from a technology perspective, you can't have a connected speaker listen to your commands unless it's essentially always listening for some way to kick that command off. Could there be in the future a way to disable it and then, either by voice and then re-enable it with a button or presence or something like that? Probably. But for now, this is the way it works.
Unfortunately. All right. We've got a new device from Arlo. Kevin, you want to talk about it? Actually, we've got 2 new devices from Arlo.
Yes. We have the Arlo Home Security System, which starts at $199. It is available for pre-order now at Best Buy, Amazon, and Arlo.com. Basically, it's a home security system with multi-sensors. So the wireless multi-sensor can detect motion, door window openings, as well as tilt, which is nice, water leaks, freezing temperatures, lighting changes, and I don't know what T3, T4 smoke CO alarm audio sirens are. What's T3 and T4?
I don't know, but Basically, it's
All
audio
right.
alarms from your smoke alarm.
All right. Very good. So quite a bit in these multi-sensors. You also have a multifunctional keypad sensor hub, which doubles as a motion detector. Very nice. They've tied it into their 24/7 professional monitoring service and emergency response system. That requires the Arlo professional monitoring subscription. They have video verification, so it can see if you're in the house, or not in the house, but if you're coming home versus somebody else walking to your home that it doesn't know. That also requires an Arlo camera and the professional monitoring subscription. They've got a system bundle for $199 that gets the sensor hub, 2 sensors, 30 days of professional monitoring, and 1 window decal. I would just buy the window decal. That's just me. For an extra $100, you get the sensor hub, but now you get 5 multi-sensors, 2 window decals, and a yard sign.
I would do that one,
which is
simply
nice.
because you can never have enough sensors.
There you go. Or yard signs.
Or, well, I don't care about yard signs, but whatever. Arlo also launched a new fancy Pro 5S 2K security camera. It's going to work with its home security system. It's a $249.99 Wi-Fi security camera. It'll tie into the new home security app. And it uses Arlo's encrypted SecureLink wireless technology over Wi-Fi, which if you are a person who's like, I don't want people grabbing my camera videos, this is for you. And yeah, so basically for $500, almost 500 or 550, you can get 1 fancy camera, you could get 5 sensors, and you could get your security hub. I mean, this is not terrible. So the Pro 5S 2K camera can be controlled via Google Assistant and IFT. Support for Amazon is coming soon, and HomeKit is not supported. So that's sad. Okay, moving on. Level's new HomeKey smart lock may not be as secure as you think.
We just talked about this new lock. It's actually not like brand new. It's been out for a little while, but it's being sold directly in the Apple Store and online through Apple. And that was kind of a biggish deal a few weeks back. So you're paying $329 for the Level Lock with...
It's the Level Lock Plus. I should mention that because they have the Level Lock Touch, which is similar but doesn't support HomeKey. So the Level Lock Plus is the HomeKey version.
Right. So this is $329 and it comes with its own locking mechanism. I know the original Level Locks you added to your existing ones and so on. And the issue reported by 9to5Mac, and I've watched a video on this. It's a very short video of somebody trying to basically break into a house through the lock.
And it's from the lockpicking lawyer, which I actually have followed in the past. This is a legit person.
Yeah. The video is short because he can get through it in 2 different ways in about 5 seconds. What this says to me is maybe the smarts of this are pretty cool and worth it, and the design is really nice, but for $329, Level should be putting in a more secure locking mechanism because he said there's no security pins in this. He was able to easily pick it with literally like one lock picking tool. And also was able to use an SC1 bump key. Again, both of those under 5 seconds because he's just not that secure of a lock itself. And he's got a valid complaint. He's like, if you're paying $329, it should be good at its primary function. And he questions it, and so do I after watching.
Yeah. Now I want to buy a lockpicking set. This happens to me like once a year. I'm like,
yes.
Oh. Okay. Oro, which is a company we've written about. I think we've had the CEO on. It was a lighting company that makes light switches. The cool thing about Oro was that it would automatically detect the lights that the switch was controlling and figure out lighting designs for it. It was fancy lighting, and it was kind of an expensive product, but it wasn't like crazy expensive. And according to CE Pro, the company is no longer going to manufacture or distribute its Oro smart living system. Instead, it's going to use its remaining resources to provide ongoing support to existing customers, including its professional installer network. Integrators can continue adding new Oro One switches, and the company says integrators can continue to install and use the Oro's existing smart home installations. But development for new software updates is going to be suspended. They're committing to a minimum of 6 months of ongoing support. That might happen to be extended. Oro is basically holding off. It is looking for investment because they would like to continue supporting its customers, but I just don't see with this being out in the open that happening. But I mean, I loved the idea. I actually wanted to test them in my house, but my husband, we had just gone through a renovation. He was like, please do not change anything electrical or big in the house for a while. And I was like, okay.
Probably a good idea that you held off.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
These are beautiful. I mean, yes, they're not cheap. I mean, the Pro one is $299. And think of it as a regular light switch, but instead of a switch, you have a touch screen that runs, I'll say, an app to control whatever device that it's connected to. So if it's connected to a fan, you'll see fan speeds and power. If it's connected to a thermostat, you can see the temperature and raise it or lower it. You can control music. It's really neat.
Yeah, and it's actually very similar to Brilliant, I'll be honest. It's got an intercom. You can control certain apps. It's got you can control your music playback. It has some sensors in there. It's nice. So the perfect lighting is to me, that was the most exciting thing because it has motion detection, sound sensing. It tries to adjust the lights based on context. So It's a real bummer.
Yes, it is.
That's my real bummer of the news. Let's talk about, I don't know, is this a bummer? This feels kind of like a bummer, but let's talk about the Google Nest Wi-Fi Pro. Because you tried it. This is the latest Google Wi-Fi 6 mesh networking system. It has Wi-Fi 6. It also has Wi-Fi 6.
Wi-Fi 6E.
Yes. And Wi-Fi 6E, for those who are like, what? Why are they adding this? That is because the FCC opened up new spectrum. So Wi-Fi uses 2.4 gigahertz spectrum and 5 gigahertz spectrum. That's been historically the case. And now it can use 6 gigahertz spectrum for some devices. And you have to have a 6E to 6E device for them to talk to each other. But this actually, Kevin, you'll talk about how this is using 6E today when there are a few 6E devices out there.
This is a little bit of a bummer for some people. I'll kind of start with the end here and say, if you have a Wi-Fi 6 router right now, this is not going to do much for you in my experience. If you have an older router that's Wi-Fi 5 or lower, I hope not, this is a relatively inexpensive upgrade. And I say that because I've tested the 3-pack, which costs $399.99, which is significantly cheaper than my Eero 6 Pro 3-pack. I think that was $600, and you can easily spend more from another brand to have a 3-pack of Wi-Fi 6 mesh networking gear. The 6, let's talk about the 6 and the 6E bits, because they are using it for two purposes. One, if you have a Wi-Fi 6E device, and I actually have two. I didn't realize I had any, but I just recently got a Pixel 7 review unit, and that has Wi-Fi 6E support, so it can use the 6 gigahertz band. And one of my Chromebooks, the Lenovo ThinkPad Chromebook, has a 6E radio in it. And that's a brand new Chromebook, so most laptops and Chromebooks don't yet have 6E. With those being on the 6 gigahertz spectrum, I did see a little bump in speeds, but nothing massive. I was kind of disappointed by that. But most people aren't going to have devices like that. So really what Google's doing is using the 6 gigahertz spectrum for, I'll call it wireless backhaul, each access point connecting to the other access points and the router. That's how they talk. It's your wireless LAN between those access points. So even if you don't have a 6E device, the router and the access points are 6E devices talking to each other in that 6 gigahertz spectrum. And that can actually bring a benefit to your other devices on the network because it can take a lot of that traffic and move it off the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz right off the bat. So all the bits and bytes flying around on the network between devices or between the routers is not interfering with device to router connections. Again, though, I didn't really see a big uplift, and every home is different. I have a 3-story townhouse. I had to put one of each unit on each floor, and I always recommend that if you have multi-floor, because in this case, Google says one unit will cover 2,200 square feet. My entire townhouse is about 2,000 square feet, and with one unit, as soon as I went up one floor, speeds dropped dramatically, and up on the second floor, I could barely use the internet. So I had to use all three, and I would recommend you do the same for any mesh networking system, to be honest. Some other things, set up very easy. It's all in the Google Home app now. It configured itself properly, no problems. Took 5 minutes. Setting up the access points to connect to the mesh network, also very easy. Google then tests the connection speeds between those access points and will say, hey, this is kind of a weak signal between number 2 and number 3. You might want to move one. So that's kind of nice. It doesn't tell you much more, but at least it's something, which is good. You do get, and this is an upgrade over the Nest Wi-Fi units, which are not Wi-Fi 6, by the way. So you get the wireless upgrade, but you also get 2 Ethernet ports on each unit, and that is helpful.
The smart home people love the extra ports.
Yeah, well, I need it. Absolutely. I have the Wyze base station connected via Ethernet, Lutron Hub, Philips Hue Bridge. So I need those Ethernet ports, and I'm glad I could use them. I will say, because I also use a PC that I hardwire to an access point, that Ethernet port comes in handy, but it's limited to 1 gigabit per second, which that's kind of a letdown to me, but it also helps keep the costs down. So if you have multi-gig internet speeds and you're like, I'm going to get multi-gig over Ethernet. No, you're not. You're going to get 1 gig at best. And I'm 2 hops away on this PC and I'm only getting about 200 megabits per second, which is a little disappointing. So aside from that, I mean, again, I tested it compared to my Eero 6 Pros, as I mentioned. I barely saw an uplift in all of the tests that I did, which was the same places, the same devices on both networks. And I know there are other variables involved, but really, I mean, it was negligible. I was kind of disappointed. And I even saw higher latency in some cases on the Google Nest Wi-Fi Pro. So it's a little disappointing. Again, if you're on an older router you don't have Wi-Fi 6, you probably will see a huge boost. But for the rest of us who have been upgrading, not so much. There is a Thread radio inside. I can't do anything with it. And I didn't even check with Google. I'm like, is it in there? Because I don't see anything on settings. They say it's in there, but I show nothing in the settings saying I have a Thread network. And, maybe that's just because it's early days yet for Thread and Matter. That's all I can say. And I plan to check that out in the future. I'll hang on to these routers for a little bit yet. So one more nice thing about this with cost, there's no subscription fees. So you get what I would call some table stakes features and some additional features at no extra charge that in comparison I pay Eero for with a subscription. The kicker is you must enable Google Nest Wi-Fi cloud services in the app. If you turn that off and don't allow Google to see your network activity to optimize and everything else, you can't see your device list, you can't monitor bandwidth, you can't turn on family Wi-Fi, which lets you schedule downtimes for certain devices or groups of devices. So I guess it's like a privacy trade-off versus price. Disappointing in that regard, but if you want the best features, you're going to have to let Google manage everything. So there's not much else to say. It doesn't do anything for the smart home just yet. It's ready to. It's relatively inexpensive. But again, if you got Wi-Fi 6 already, if you've bought a new router in the past 1 to 2 years, I do not see a reason to upgrade. If not, and you're okay with the conditions that I mentioned here, yeah, I mean, $199 for 1, $299 for 2, $399 for 3. That's cheap, and you're going to get a nice speed boost provided your ISP is providing fast enough speeds.
Got it. Yeah. So if you're on 5, sure, this is something to look at. If you are already on 6, don't rush out unless the features are nice. I mean, like if I were weighing like this versus an Eero or even an Eero Pro 6E, I have the Eero Pro 6Es that I'm still running. I might look at this instead, simply because I don't want to spend $100 a year. Now it is time for the segment of the show where we listen to you. It is the Internet of Things podcast hotline. This week, it is sponsored by Silicon Labs. Silicon Labs' Wi-Fi portfolio is designed specifically for the IoT, where multi-protocol, RF performance, ultra-low power consumption, and fast time to market are critical. You can learn more about Silicon Labs' low-power Wi-Fi hardware, software, tools, and development kits at scilabs.com. Okay, so if you would like to call us and be part of the show, give us a call at 512-623-7424, and you will be entered to win November's prize, which... we did this last year. Let's do it again. The Twinklies lights. Everyone loves those. We'll send you a Twinklies light set.
Holiday lights.
Hopefully in time for December, but probably not in time. We should do that for October. Gosh, I feel like we said that last year.
Note to self.
Anyway.
Yes.
And we also have a winner for last month's prize, which was it's used, like it was my version of the Yale lock.
Very gently used.
So I'm going to pack that up and we are going to send that to Greg. Greg, you won our lock. We actually heard Greg's question on last week's show. So congratulations to you. And I hope you enjoy it.
He lives near me somewhere. If I had the lock, I would offer to deliver it and buy him a coffee.
Go. Man, that's pretty special. Greg, let us up.
Not really.
We'll see where you live. Maybe I'll send it to Kevin and make him do it.
I drink Wawa coffee. It's not that special.
All right. So this week, our voicemail actually comes from Sam, and he's got a question about smoke detectors. Let's hear it.
Hi, this is Sam calling in from Kentucky. Thank you guys for the great podcast. Stacey and Kevin, great combination. I was curious about smoke detectors that have Matter 1.0 support, and I was wondering if you have heard of any of these launching at the November Matter launch. I was surprised Matter 1.0 actually had smoke detectors, but it's great. Smart ones are already pretty pricey, so I'm hoping Matter commoditization will help bring those prices down. And just having a smart smoke detector is, I think, a good idea. They're security devices in one way, so reliable out-of-home notification would be a big sell and kind of a relief. And I know smoke detectors are also getting updated, at least in the U.S., with the new UL 217 8th edition standard. The OEMs will all have to kind of have a new generation anyways, and I'm hoping they'll have the new UL standard and Matter support all baked in one. Just curious, if you guys had heard, are any of them coming in November? What kind of do? So would love to see some of them. All right, thank you so much. Love the podcast. Bye-bye.
It's a Matter question.
Sam, you're like all of us, just so eager for Matter. I love it. The news I have for you is not awesome. Basically, it's smoke alarms are very low in the priority list, it sounds like, both from support as these things get tested and also from delivery. So I reached out to First Alert, which is owned now by Resideo, and they were like, yeah, we don't have any Matter announcements at this time. So the soonest I think you could buy a Matter connected smoke alarm would be sometime in, are you ready? 2023.
I'm going to guess the second half of 2023, to be honest. Even though the Matter protocol does support smoke detectors, when you look at the total installed base of devices that could work with Matter, people are going to go after the bulbs, the switches, locks, and so on that more people have bought. And that's a disappointment, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah. You should be replacing your smoke alarms every 10 years. So in case y'all aren't aware of that. So if you're doing your replacement right now, just go without Matter, or if you can push off your replacement for another year, but I can't even guarantee it'll be out there in a year. I don't feel like that's a high priority for anybody right now.
You could just spend a small amount on a non-smart smoke detector, or smoke detectors, I should say, so you don't put up a big investment now, and then a year or two from now, whenever these come out, spend the big bucks.
I don't know if I really want to be thinking about my smoke alarms more than once a year, but they're more than
once every 10.
Well, I mean, we changed the batteries. By the way, it is about time to fall back, which if you have smoke alarms, you should change your batteries. Ta-da!
Yep.
Or unless you do it at the spring forward. But either way, this is a good time to check and if you haven't done your batteries, this is the time. Okay. So Sam, I hope we helped you. And remember, if you have a question for us, give us a call at 512-623-7424 and you will be entered to win the November prize of Twinkly's Lights. Woo, woo. And I think that concludes this segment of the show, but please stay tuned for a message from our sponsor, as well as our guest, Peggy Carriers from Avnet. She's going to be talking about the chip shortage, which, surprise, surprise, is still ongoing. And we're also seeing people expect to pay more for chips. So that's not awesome news for all of us. And we'll learn what we can do about that. So stay tuned for her. And now a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is ARM. Hey everyone, we are taking a quick break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is ARM, and I have Kevin Ryan, Senior Director of IoT Go-to-Market and Ecosystem from ARM. So first up, what is ARM doing in the IoT?
ARM is focused sharply on empowering our partners in the software developer ecosystem to thrive and excel in unlocking the opportunities of the IoT. We are focusing our efforts on three key areas. Firstly, ARM has the largest computational footprint on the planet, and a huge portion of this is IoT and embedded. Our partners shipped over 29 billion ARM-based chips in 2021. Around 70% of these were designed for IoT and embedded. This computational footprint is extraordinarily capable and rapidly evolving to match the workloads of tomorrow. Secondly, we believe rapid, innovative software development is key to the next phase of IoT. We are laser focused on enabling developers through offerings like ARM Virtual Hardware. And finally, we're committed to standardization initiatives driving the advancement of the IoT. These initiatives include PSA Certified, Project Cassini, and Project Centauri, as well as efforts like Matter.
And how are you accelerating software development with ARM Virtual Hardware?
ARM Virtual Hardware provides models of popular IoT development kits, ARM Cortex-M and A processors, and Corestone solutions in the cloud for developers to build and test software without the need for physical hardware. It allows device and application developers to scale IoT software development and accelerate product design by up to 2 years. We're working with companies across the ecosystem, such as AWS, Oracle, Raspberry Pi, and Kixo, to either bring their hardware into the platform or to integrate ARM Virtual Hardware into their platforms and services. We're also working with Matter to explore the integration of ARM Virtual Hardware into the core CI flows of the Matter CI/CD infrastructure. This will ensure product developers can instantly access a scalable virtual test environment that maps directly to the wide ecosystem of ARM-based computing platforms for IoT. Stay tuned for more developments in this area.
And what types of use cases are you seeing ARM Virtual Hardware being used for?
The first one is the ability to start developing software ahead of hardware availability. The second use case is continuous integration and testing in the cloud. Real hardware is difficult to scale. ARM Virtual Hardware allows developers to move testing to the cloud infrastructure, enabling quick scaling to hundreds or thousands of boards in minutes. The third use case is MLOps. With the increasing adoption of ML at the edge, the ability to estimate how fast an ML model would run on the device is critical. By integrating ARM Virtual Hardware with ML tools such as Kixo, we are empowering data scientists to iterate experiments with different network architectures and optimizations much more quickly compared to with real hardware.
Excellent. Where can our listeners go to find out more about ARM Virtual Hardware?
Simply visit arm.com/virtual-hardware or search ARM Virtual Hardware in your search engine.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Peggy Carriers, who is the VP of Global Sales Enablement at Avnet. Hello, Peggy. How are you today?
Hi, Stacey. Thanks for having me here. I'm doing great.
I am really excited. We talked about 18 months ago, and we spent a lot of time talking about what y'all are seeing at Avnet from the chip shortage perspective. And just so everybody's aware, Avnet is a distributor, an electronics distributor. So they're seeing it from both sides of the equation, people who want to buy stuff and people who are selling into them as a distributor. So Peggy, quickly, what are the broad trends that you're still seeing?
Yeah, so, we are a distributor at Avnet. We're considered a broadline distributor and a technical value add distributor. So two of our core competencies are guiding customers in design and then also in supply chain. And, we've done that for over 100 years now. And over the last 2.5 years, those core competencies have become more important than ever before, especially as customers are struggling to get their products to market. They are moving from, one region to another. We have that capability to build and design anywhere in the world, and there really are three top of mind focus areas for our customers and suppliers as well. And in the first topic is, shortages. When is this going to end? When are we going to get back to normal? Seems to be a common theme across the ecosystem. The second revolves around pricing, inflation, currency exchange rate. So the financials of doing business in this industry. And then lastly, to be more sustainable, engineers are asking questions on what shifts do we need to make in design to avert some of these problems in the future, to take some of the lessons learned and hindsight's 2020, but move forward into the future so that we drive more sustainable solutions.
Okay, let's start with the continuing shortages because that was everybody's big headline, and it's still happening, and it's still happening in certain parts, including MCUs, which are huge for the IoT. So what is happening on that front? Is it the same as it was 2 years ago, or what has changed?
Some of the lead times are moderating. They're not back to where they were in 2018, 2019. And in this industry, throughput cycle time will always far exceed expected lead times. And pre-2020, 2018, 2019, we had lead times of 4 to 8 weeks, 4 to 12 weeks. And the actual throughput cycle time can be anywhere from 22 weeks in the front end to 4 to 6 weeks in the back end. And the way that suppliers were able to respond to quick lead times was by having a die bank, massive inventory of wafers staged to be driving into the back end for assembly and test. We're nowhere near that today. We still have depleted die banks, and lead times are much higher than they were pre-2020.
Yikes. And I would say we're still experiencing some factory staffing issues because of COVID and, Lord help us, natural disasters. And in a recent survey that y'all did, y'all had said that about almost 60% of your respondents have seen their component shortage become more severe. And I'm really curious what's happening at the factory level, but also given the investments that are being made right now in chip manufacturing and this kind of crazy trade war between the US and China over semiconductors.
Yeah. So to address this industry, this industry has always and will continue to be global, regardless of policy. And we work through it. But the capacity expansion for suppliers, it takes 3 years at least from start to finish to develop a new fab. I started at Motorola at the beginning of my career. We founded Six Sigma. This industry is a quality-based industry, and it takes time to get to the yield levels and the quality levels to produce the products in the market. So when you're looking at a 3-year lead time for new capacity expansion to come online, it's going to take a while. So we still do have the shortages. And at the same time, the vector of consumption still keeps going up and to the right because the consumption of electronics and literally everything we use in everyday life continues to increase in concentration. So if you look at, the increasing usage of electronics, the time delay it takes to put new capacity online, we are going to feel these shortages for a while, at least in some product categories.
And what are those product categories?
Specifically, that changes from day to day. You mentioned MCU, but the vast majority at a macro level, even, most semiconductors are still extended beyond. I would say passives are moderating down to more of a normal level. However, we are seeing, spotty areas of increase. Interconnect still remains elevated from where it was before 2020 as well. So across the board, there aren't a lot of product categories that are where they were before 2020.
I don't think life will ever get to where it is before 2020.
Yeah, but there is a lag of perception and reality. So as they start filling up the inventories, it does take a while for that to hit an engineer's bench or to the buyer's list. It does take time for it to flush through the supply chain.
Nice. All right. And in the meantime, we're poised to see price increases. Another thing that your respondents said is about 30% of them are expecting to see price increases continue and delays continue. So can you talk about what's behind the price increases and kind of where those are going to hit?
Yeah, simple economics and, the supply and demand, that's a normal cycle, but we have some extenuating forces out there that are putting more pressure on the industry. And the first one is a lack of talent. And if you even look at STEM talent, engineering talent are in short supply. And so the cost per employee is going up because you have inflation, and the cost to live is rising as well. So the cost to build, cost to design is going up for manufacturers. And then the cost of raw materials. We've seen some relief in a few of the raw materials, but it's still increasing. Fuel costs, transportation costs, those are not coming down. So the cost to produce still is increasing, and the cost per unit is increasing. So we don't anticipate the prices going down anytime soon.
Which leads to what I think is my favorite thing to talk about with you is this idea that, oh my gosh, We've got shortage of supply, so we don't know what components, so we got to be more flexible in our designs. Things are expensive, so maybe we can do more in software than in hardware. So let's talk about the design shifts that you're seeing tied to some of these big macro forces.
Yeah. So, I love that you mentioned, the value of software and hardware, because that is a component of shifting design to more and more products are connected to each other. And the more you can include at the very front end of the design cycle, the better chance you have to extend that product life cycle in the market. And considering how it connects to other things, how can you enable through software? Those questions now are being asked, at the very front end of design. Some other design practices that, we at Avnet, we're a technical value-add distributor, as I mentioned earlier. We've got over 2,000 engineers. We work with our customers on evaluating, using zonal architecture capabilities and modular design so that you can extend the life cycle without having to do a full redesign. AVL, considering sourceability, that's not normally what a design engineer is focused on, but we work with our engineers and our customers to consider expanding the approved vendor list and making designs as flexible as possible so we can drop and replace across suppliers. Distribution sits in a very unique space in the ecosystem. We're kind of that control tower, but we're also agnostic. We want our customers to be successful in the market regardless of what products they use and components they use on the board. So those are just some of the things that we work with our designers on to give them the best chance of success in the market.
I have talked to other people who are on the hardware side, and they're telling me they're doing things like, hey, I'm going to try to source 2 chips for this job, and I'll design my board to handle both of those chips. And in some cases, it's kind of a boon because some of the devices they source might have additional functionality. So they might end up being able to design in like a new sensor, or maybe it's a combo radio on something. And I'm curious if you're seeing that also happen.
Absolutely. That design practices, it's in the beginning, there usually was an A/B design. And then we got into blind copy design where you just kind of copy and pasted the majority of the board and you adjusted a few things to move forward. It was fast, it's expedient. But what you just talked about is a boon of, okay, let's go back to that A/B approach. And, microcontrollers, as you know, are very hard to drop and replace across suppliers, but so are MOSFETs. I mean, they're in silicon carbide versus silicon MOSFETs. It's a different design functionality. And those are other considerations. You have more than just silicon that you're looking at. You're looking at GaN, you're at silicon carbide. So what designers can do now by purposely looking at different alternatives, it can drive best practices in design, especially as designs become more complex. So that part is really exciting to see design kind of go to the next level.
And we're also seeing suppliers, like I know that ARM has created like their virtual sandbox for design. And I'm curious if we're going to see more software-based services to help hardware designers kind of test things out before they actually have to put it in hardware.
So we're really excited at Avnet. We have the Design Hub, and we've always had a tool called Avail, which is a block diagram design canvas that our FAEs have used with engineers and customers for the last 5 years. This past year and a half, we have invested significantly to move that to a cloud-based solution. It is now live in Europe, and it encompasses, we've got reference designs, we've got block diagrams, you can import associative selling, like the associative parts on the board, you can round that out. Develops PCB layout, bill of material generation. It does a bill of material risk analysis, and you can route proto builds directly to Farnell in a seamless experience 24/7. So, Farnell Newark is our high service end of our business, and they are sitting there ready to sell that unit of one to get the prototypes built. So that is live in Europe and will be live in the Americas in February. It's a game changer for us and our customer base.
Sounds like it. All right. So we are seeing innovation in both hardware design, software to help make hardware design easier, and moving more features to software. So Peggy, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I really appreciate it, Stacy. Anytime.
And that concludes this week's episode of the Internet of Things podcast. Please join us next Thursday, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you can't get enough IoT news, I would love for you to sign up at www.stacyoniot.com for our weekly IoT newsletter, where we explain all kinds of things that we don't even get to on the show. Once again, thank you for listening, and please subscribe.